We're well into July now, and it's time for another garden update. I thought we'd do just a little walk by and take a look at everything before we get out there and take a closer look at some stuff. Overall, I would say the garden's doing very well, although there are a few things that are starting to feel the heat of summer and starting to react just a little bit to that. We're still getting plenty to eat. Lots of beans, tomatoes, plenty of cucumbers. And we're still processing the carrots. We have a few of those left to freeze. But as you can see, everything's doing pretty well. This is one of the sunflowers that the birds planted for us, and in my opinion, it's one of our prettiest. The peppers are really starting to set on well now, and this Jimmy Nardello has a lot of peppers on it already, and lots of blooms up the top that will produce more peppers. The Oda sweet pepper has always been a good producer for us, and this year is going to be no exception. The Brazilian starfish pepper is about 3.5 feet tall now, and the Sugar Rush peach right next to it is about 3 feet tall and has some nice peppers down at the bottom. We have a couple of hybrid peppers, the Mega Gold and the Double Delight, and they're just now starting to set on peppers, so they'll be a little later than some of the others. But the Big Jim chili pepper right next to those is setting on very well. We're going to do a lot of pepper harvesting in the months of August, September, and October. We're starting to harvest quite a few tomatoes, and I thought I'd show you something on this Tasmanian Chocolate. Even though it's been pretty hot here, we are starting to get some smaller tomatoes up to the top of the plant, and that's a very good sign. I would say there were probably at least a half a dozen up near the top, which would bring the total on this plant to about 20 tomatoes. Even though I haven't looked very well, on the Boronia I noticed another smaller tomato on it too. Even the Uluru Ochre has one near the top of the plant, and I picked one of those that would probably go over a pound. In this grow bag I have some F3 hybrid peppers that are a cross between an Oda and a hot pepper, and what I'm shooting for is a pepper with the Oda color but a mild heat. This one has the color, so I'll be trying it soon. For those of you who didn't watch last week's video, I tried the Boronia and I really like it a lot, and I would call the Boronia my new favorite tomato overall. So if you haven't watched that video, I'll put a link down below. As you know, we've had a little trouble with possums around here, and a possum got to the first Boronia before we did. Sometimes it feels like we've got a lot of problems, but then we hear about other folks' problems and it doesn't seem so bad. My cousin and his wife live in a beautiful area of North Carolina, and this is what they have to deal with: bears. Here's a shot of one that was eating one of their tomatoes last year, and my cousin takes some beautiful photos. Looking at this photo, possums don't seem nearly as bad. Here's a look at some of the tomatoes we've been harvesting. This one here is a Boronia, and we are really liking that one. I picked all of these a couple of days early because the rain was coming. Next to the Boronia, we have a Uluru Ochre, and that tomato has some big fruits on it. The largest one there is probably over a pound. And then next to that is the Tasmanian Chocolate, and it's very productive. And we have some that are setting on now, and probably have close to a dozen small tomatoes at the top of the plant. Then on the end here is Firebird Sweet. We haven't tried that one yet, but I'm going to be doing a taste test of that one today, so I'm hoping it's a good one. It has a tendency to split if it gets too much moisture though. It might seem kind of strange to have bananas growing in Zone 6B, but we have 3 different kinds. The Musabastu is probably about 12 feet tall now and still growing. And the Musavella Latina right next to it is probably close to 7 feet tall and I'm thinking that it will probably produce bananas next month. And the Orinoco, the Dwarf Orinoco, is about 4.5 to 5 feet tall. And this is its first year for us. And right next to it is some ginger in a container. The red noodle beans are very productive, and it's hard to keep up with harvesting those, as well as the green ones on the other side of the cage. It seems like if we don't pick every 2 or 3 days, we get behind. I'm a little disappointed in the Kentucky blue pole beans this year. They just haven't climbed like they normally do, but they are setting on a lot of beans, so I think we're going to do all right. The python snake beans took a while to get growing, but they're making up for it now. And some of the vines on this one are probably about 15 feet long now and have escaped the cage. Here's a closer look at one of the very unique blooms they have. After I harvested our carrots, I had plenty of seeds left, so I went ahead and planted some more. And while I was at it, I planted a few more beets too. The jicama seems to really like the heat, and it's starting to climb on the cage pretty well now. And as I've mentioned before, the foliage and the beans are poisonous. Where we had the Armenian cucumber, that cage was empty, so I planted some long beans around it and a couple of cucumbers in the middle. Not sure how that will work, but we'll find out. The Chrysanthemum Melon is starting to set on a few melons. And right now they're a little bit bigger than a baseball, but they won't get a whole lot bigger than that. And in the same cage on the other side is the Cicada sweet melon. And it's got a few on it too. Right now they're about as big as a softball, so it won't be long and we'll be able to try both types. I gave the petunias in the stackable pots a severe pruning. And in case you're wondering how we ended up with so many volunteer petunias, here's the look at the seeds that one petunia flower can produce. They're almost as fine as dust. The tomatillos are starting to set on. I had a couple of people remind me that you need 2 of them to pollinate, and I just happen to have 2 in this same cage, so they're going to be all right, I think. We've already harvested one of the ping tongues, and as you can see, we've got several coming along. And this plant is going to be pretty productive. Right next door to that one, we have a volunteer that I plucked out of one of the straw bales. I thought this was a Tomatillo, but it turns out it's probably one that came from the Ichabod 2 that I grew. So we'll see how this one develops, but it looks like it's going to have some pretty good-sized fruits. We're getting plenty of our Marketmore 76 cucumbers, so that lets us eat our favorite summer salad, the cucumber, basil, and tomato salad that we really like. We've been eating a lot of that, and we also had enough to give away to family and friends, and then we made some pickles, and we've tried some of those and like them pretty well too. I'm really liking the jigsaw pepper we have in this container. It's the first time I've grown it, but the foliage on it is amazing, and it's getting plenty of peppers on it too. Here's a look at the stackable pots with the ornamental peppers and the rose moss. The Hot Pops purple at the top are producing peppers, and the conga peppers in the middle are also starting to get quite a few peppers. The albino bullnose was the first pepper that we harvested, and we used some of those in some fried potatoes with onions. Here's a quick look at some of my F2 hybrid peppers that are a cross between a black pearl and some unknown pepper. There's been a lot of variability in the foliage and in the peppers. It's been a very good year for the hardy hibiscus, and this one is covered with blooms, and they're pretty good sized flowers too. The pollinators really seem to like them. And we also have a few red ones. This rose of Sharon is in full bloom, just in time for our hummingbirds to start migrating through, and we noticed a couple of them in the backyard yesterday. Here's a look at the petunias and the toilet. It's looking very good, but it was starting to get stressed from just having too much foliage and too many flowers, so I gave it a severe pruning to see if that would perk it up a little. That's a look at how our garden's doing. Before you go, let us know how your garden is doing. And if you're just now finding this channel and you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. We'll see you next time.